Hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar on killing a module in 60 minutes. Today we're not going to spend 60 minutes killing it. We're only going to spend around 15 minutes and see how we can do this. Some of you have seen this session before or something similar, and we're going to take a look at how we can use items, of course, to produce the same things that we usually will do on a using one of the standard Dynamicweb modules. So the agenda for this webinar is, first we're going to take a look at the news module, which is going to be the model for this one, and take a discussion on what the news module can and the items, what they can and what they cannot do. So a brief one-to-one compare of features, and then take a look at how we can implement the same things in items. Taking a look at the fields, discussing how we can add categories or use it, and then how we use the item publisher to publish news as items, how we can create an RSS feed using items and an item publisher, and then maybe take a look at other features, and maybe take a look at examples of other modules as well if we have the time. So the Dynamicweb way, or the classical Dynamicweb way to handle a module is something like this. On my left side, I have a list of modules in Dynamicweb, and if I click the news module in this list, which we do not see, we get a news administration on our right side. And I have some groups in here, and I can create news items into those groups. And a news item is defined by a number of fields, like a heading and a subheading, and a piece of text and a date and an author and so on. They have basically got fields that I decided when we developed the module that is available, and then you have the possibility of extending a news item with the different fields and so on. And we have a module that can publish the news various places on the website. You know this module, it's one of the most used modules of all times. The new way of doing this is, of course, to use items. This is a screenshot from the Management Center. I'm going to show you in a bit. And basically, we have item types. And here I've defined a new item type called news. And it contains the same fields as we have it from the news module itself in a simplified version. One of the points here is you can add any fields to your news item. So if you need an image gallery, you can create that using a list of images, or you can create links to products and all kinds of other interesting things you can insert into the definition of a news item, how it should look and what kind of data we should have on the news item itself. But enough talk, let's dig into a solution instead. So what I have here is an administration of Dynamicweb, and first let's have a brief look at the news module and have a look at how the data looks inside that one. And we're waiting on my local installation. There we go. So here I have a category, and I have 4 news in it. And a news item, basically, we just have a heading, subheading, shortcut, some text, and the image of all of these things. And I have some settings up here with author, metadata, comments, and categories, placing the same news item in more than one category. I have publication periods, and I can do some marketing related stuff on the news item itself. So, and if you're taking a look at all the things that we have in the ribbon bar up here, they are very similar to the things that we can do on a page. So if we take a look at the page itself, we have things like publication periods on here, and we have comments and ratings, and we have the marketing things and personalization features directly on a page. We also have some metadata, and we have the possibility of controlling URLs and so on. So basically, it's the same things we can do on a news item and on the properties of a page. So, but instead of using the news module, we're going to take a look on how we can use the items instead. So taking a look at the item types in here, I've created this news item type, which is defining the fields that we want to use. And we can see we have the same fields as we did on the news item itself. Date, heading, image, text, author. I don't have a subheading on this one. I can easily create one. The benefit of this one is I can create as many fields as I want to. That's the first benefit. And other benefits is I will add this news item into the content tree directly, meaning it will get its own URL. And that would give us some benefits in terms of not getting into problems with the duplicate content in the same way as we can do with other of the modules, because you can publish on several different pages and so on. So now I've defined an item type that is similar to what we have on a news, and I'm basically going to create a page based on this item type. So I have instances in my content tree of type news, and when I do that, I get all the features and the properties that I get on a page that we saw before. So comparing the combination of the fields of an item type and the properties of a page or a navigation item, I get all the features that I usually have on a news item inside the module itself. What I've done here in my content tree is I've created a folder, and a folder is a relatively new concept in Dynamicweb. A folder is basically a page which is unpublished. It's just a container for other things. So this one is called content. It might as well have been called modules. So it's basically similar to this one. And under my modules, I have created a news module or a news category. And under that one, I have different categories for adding my news items into. So basically, this is modules. This is the module instance, and these are the categories inside the news. So already here, I have better possibilities of creating folder structures with subcategories and so on, which I do not have on using a regular news, the regular news module. So, and I can create a new page in here. And instead of creating a blank page, I'll create the page as a news item, add a new news item. I'm not going to add a new one. I'm just going to take an existing one. And basically, I get the fields that we saw before. What is the news date? What is the heading and the image and the text of this one? And as we saw before, I can add any number of fields and features into this one. I could have something called a carousel or a gallery or news about a specific product, or I can add all kinds of information to an item type this place, which I cannot do on the news item itself. So doing this, I now have a number of news items placed in my navigation structure in here. And let's have a look at, no, I don't have, you can see the URLs of these. They are placed in the root of the website itself, and that's because content, news, and press releases, because they are folders, they are not part of the URL that we create for pages in this way. So also another benefit is we get better URLs, and I have better options for controlling what the URL should be called compared to the way we do with the normal news. I have a question, and Nunu asks if we can set a folder to only allow news or pages items. We cannot set that on a folder, but you can create on the news items, you can limit where they should be published in the tree. But that specific feature request we have we've received before, so you on a folder can set the limitation on to this folder can only contain news items. Of course, to help editors to only publish news items into a folder like this. But currently you cannot do that. You can only control it using the item type definition itself. And yes, we have the usual question on software as a services solution that we have a limited number of pages and you have unlimited number of news items. And we're working on a model to solve that. So when you create pages like these ones that are placed inside a folder in the content tree, meaning that these does not appear in any navigation in the front end. They will not count in the license, but it's not ready yet. But it's the way we're going to solve it, because there's no reason to use the news module just because of the license issue. So we want to fix that issue. So we're working on a model that can fix that. So far, so good. We now have our news items in here. These news items themselves, they have a specific template attached to them down here. And this is a layout template and not a news template in itself. So let's have a brief look at how we publish these. I have a design called DV Simple, and I have my news template right here. In this case, it's a Razor template. We use the master up here that takes care of all the navigation and all of that. And then I have the possibility of showing the item image or the heading and the author and the text and some other of the features that I have. So right here I have all the possibilities that I usually have of a layout template, and that's I can do some more things on a layout template that I can do on a regular news detail template. One of the things I could do if I wanted to is I could add a content area or content placeholder. So I could add a class called DV content. And call it additional content. And if I did this at this point, this page, instead of just having the news item itself, would also have a paragraph list. So on a news item, I can create a list of paragraphs as well. So because I added a placeholder into the layout template down here, I can now also add paragraphs to that placeholder, meaning that I can publish things like a gallery or I can also add a list of products to my news item. So I can use all the modules and all the features I get from modules in a placeholder that I would add into the news item itself. But I'm not going to do that in this example. But I can do that. So that's one of the benefits of using the items. So now I have all my news items placed at these locations, and what I want to do now is I can use an item publisher to publish my news items. And what I do is I've created a news page right here, and I've added an item publisher where I select I want to publish news, and I want to publish all the items under a specific page. I could also say all the items in this website of type news. And I have a whole lot of options of finding the right places. I'm not going to go into details on this one. But what I have is I have a news list template that will take care of all the rendering of the news items on this one. So if I take a look at how it looks, I have modules and I click news. And what I get here on this URL, module news, I get the news items that I've placed in my tree structure at this place. If I click into a news item, if you take a look at the URL up here, since it is an item which is placed in the tree itself, I get a URL directly in the root, which is good for SEO purposes, of course. And I have all the features of a page available in this layout. And that means if I publish this list in several places on my website, all the links into the news item itself would be the same. Instead of using the news module, I would get two different links into the news item, giving me duplicate content issues. So I get that feature out of it. If we take a quick look at the news list template, it's very simple. For each news item, I basically have an image, URL, title, author, date, description, which is basically just the tags or the fields are defined on the news item itself. And I add the image and a title, and have a very simple template here that is used to loop through the news items that I'm publishing on the page I'm looking at right here. So very simple and very similar to a news item template. Using items will give us a number of features that we would not have using the news module or any other module. For example, one of the things I could do is I could add an item creator. So news items could be added to this list from the front end. That's one example. I can also reuse the data from the news items in other scenarios. And now the news module can publish RSS feeds, but what I can do with items in general, if I were to make a calendar or anything else with items, I can publish anything into, for example, RSS. So what I do here is I publish all my news again, all my news items. I publish the exact same things. I'm just using another template called RSS news.html. We can have a look at that as well. It's very simple, but instead of having an HTML template, it has an XML template. It has a loop of all the item information, and I'm publishing them out in an RSS format, linking back to my website. So if I take a look at that on the publishing right here, I get the items coming out here in an RSS feed. And I can make all kinds of other feeds. For example, I could create a JSON feed of all my items right here, meaning I could do some fancy stuff in my front end instead of having regular navigations or so on. I can use JSON to make some more dynamic ways of publishing my content, and use some front end side navigation to go through the news module. So that's basically it. A very simple way of creating the same kind of features that we usually have with modules, but using items instead. And it gives us a long range of features because, first of all modules will work the same way. Since we have a layout template, we have much better templating possibilities. We can use modules and paragraphs together with news items, calendar items. And we can even combine items. We can add galleries to our things. We can publish in any format that we want to. We have better control over metadata URLs, better SEO performance using the items approach. And there's a lot of things in here that is a benefit. Another thing I forgot to mention is I can actually use this one, which is filtering. So I can add some rules to what I want to add in here. So I can have some properties on the news item itself. It could be, is this a press release or should it be on my front page or something similar to that? And I can add them in a filtering method like this. Let's see, I have another question. I need to extend this question pane. Yeah, managing 1,000 news items in one category, that's not easy using the module itself. But if you have 1,000 news items, I would, instead of creating a folder and have soft pages like this, I would create a named item list. If I take a look at this one, I can create an item list of type news. And place it in here because this one is created for having a lot of news items in there, and I have searching and sorting of all the properties and so on. So named item list is the way to use news items if you have a lot of them instead of adding them as pages. But also another thing that probably is going to be there with 8.7, along with the feature that we can set that this folder should only contain news items. So when you click it, instead of folding out the pages in the tree, when you click it, instead of getting nothing on your content page, you would get a list of all the items basically placed in as sub pages here. So you would get an item list in here on your right side in a folder instead of having them in the tree. And Nuno asks, in the news module, related news are based on the keywords. Can a new item field type be created for tags to have the same approach? I'm not sure I fully understand what it is. Related news, I don't see anything about related. It's based on the keywords. Yes, he says. No, you cannot do the same in here, but what you can do on using items, because you can make this feature yourself, because what you would do on the management center, you would create a on the news item itself, you would add a field of type. You would just call it tags, and you would create an item list or a list of something in here, an editable list. And this makes it possible for users just to add tags directly on the news item itself, and your template can then find the news items going together using that approach. So so you have to learn to use the fields and the features of the fields in here to replace some of the things that we have hard coded into to the news module itself. And we have one more question. I suggested a named item list instead of pages, but sometimes we cannot foresee that a given structure will grow. Can we add a feature to folder pages that instead of listing the pages in the tree will render the pages in the right? Yes. And that was exactly what I was explaining. So when I click this one, I would get a list of the sub items I have below here. Basically, I'll just mark this folder to contain a specific type of news items, but instead of rendering them in the tree in the backend, we'll actually render them on the right side instead. And instead of having 1,000 subnodes in here, we would have it on the right side. So they look like a named item list, but they're actually going to be pages in the tree, but we're not just showing them instead. And Nuno says, awesome, and can we get that tomorrow? And I would say you get it today. I just need 5 minutes. Any more questions from anyone? Porting News v2 to items. That's a good question. Cut and paste, or you could use the data integration module, even though it's not a simple task to do so. I'm afraid we don't have a conversion button, but we actually talked about it to get all the news into the tree, so we'll consider it, definitely. Okay, just a few benefits of using the news module. You get language management. So if I have a news item in my tree like this one, and I'm using languages, I would have translation up here. I don't have that on the news module itself. I can use the drafting and the versioning features of a page. So I can go into draft mode. I have previous versions. I can add workflows and all of that crap. I can control URLs and canonicals much better than I can with the news module. I said that already. Also combining with other modules, I can create subcategories and custom fields. I have way better possibilities than I do with the news module. I think I also covered those. So as you see, there is a number of benefits and of course a couple of downsides, and we're working on them. License and categories being the biggest ones in that term. So That's it for now. Thank you for attending this webinar, and I'll see you next Wednesday or Thursday to the next one. Thank you for joining me, and see you soon. Bye.